So yeah, as Jeff said, I'm going to kind of break up the presentation into two parts. If you'd like to watch both, that's great. What we're going to do is I'm going to spend about half the time giving an overview about what is strategic communications. Why would you name 2/3 of your business name after it? And the other word is my name, so that one was kind of obvious. And then we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we're going to do the second part. I'm going to spend about 40 or 45 minutes on what I call Twitter 101. I teach a couple of different courses. Twitter 101, what I've done for today is I've taken out the stuff about how to sign up. I can help you with that if you need, and I've added a little bit of the 201 content in it. But it's something that I do with clients and with companies that bring me in that sometimes it's because they've had a little old Twitter accident, and sometimes they just realize they're not using it very effectively. And it's not for everybody, but it'll be a little bit of an overview about some of the do's and please do not do's on Twitter. So that'll be kind of the two parts today. A little bit about myself. I, like almost everyone else around here, grew up in California. And was rescued by Texas. I think I've always just been fascinated with communications, both verbal and written. I was an English major in school, which is right up there with being a drama major, and I did drama as well. But yeah, I majored in English and poli-sci, and between those two, I was fascinated with how companies can utilize communications. Certainly 101, but with my wife, she's got her master's in sociology, I heard a lot about, group dynamics and how society operates, and it got me thinking a lot about how communications work. So I've always sought out those opportunities. Right out of school, I took a job with State Farm, which at the time, I don't know where they are today, at the time they were a Fortune 35 company. I think they were number 32 when I worked for them. But I found myself at 22 and 23 years old, being put through their entire media training program, and then what they would do is they sent me to sites where hurricanes and tornadoes had hit, and I talked to media and helped get them. And there were two phases of that. The first phase was always getting the word out. Here's the phone number you call. Here's where we are, and it was always, "Yay, we're so glad you're here." And people from the news media would hug you afterward. "Oh, thank you, it's so good." And then about 3 weeks into the storm, those would shift and be like, "Why aren't you paying these claims faster? This person says you gave them $1,000 and it's $2,000 to repair. Why are you ripping people off? So, what do you mean you're from California and you're in Alabama right now?" And it would shift, and it was very noticeable. And we got to where we really knew about when it was coming. About day 21, I would wake up and say, "Here it comes." And within a day or two, you'd get that first call saying, "What the heck is going on?" So that media training kind of came into play. Later, I moved into being more of a behind-the-scenes guy, and I did a lot of speech writing for them for a long time. And then my last role with them before moving on was crisis communications, and I worked with them when something really hit the fan, which I got a little bit of that in day 22 and on in some of those storms, but I went and took a class on speech writing because I wanted to learn more about, why are you see like some presidents of the United States, they're known, wasn't he just the greatest speaker ever? And then there are others that really had trouble with that. Go watch the Kennedy-Nixon debate if you ever want an example of that. By the way, I can tell you right now how to write a great speech. I'll encapsulate a week-long course in Philadelphia. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. That's it. Thank you. I'll be out But after that, I moved over to Concordia University here in town. I helped them when they was their first community relations director, and helped them with strategic communications when they moved to the new campus. It was a really exciting time. But again, we started with all this excitement of a new campus, and then it shifted to, okay, what's next? And sometimes what's next is a little harder. After that, I went and worked for the state for a little while, and ran communications for the Texas Department of Insurance for a year during a legislative session, so I got to do strategic communications with elected officials, and that was a whole different thing. And then, kind of my side gig or hobby is I also serve as the mayor here in Cedar Park. So through 12 years of service there, I've learned a lot about communications as well. So it's something that I've always been very interested in. As Steve Martin said in a stand-up bit years ago, some people have a way with words, and other people have not way. So what is strategic communications? Simply put, it's communicating with a plan. Small business. I'm going to try to focus more on small business, but we'll cascade some large companies too. Most of us think, I know how to speak, I know how to write, I can deal with things when they come up. And that works until it doesn't. There's a problem with shooting from the hip, which is what most of us as small business owners and working at small. So how many of you are small business owners? Almost everybody. How many of you work at a small business? And other? What do you do?
I'm starting a business.
Oh, entrepreneurs. There you go. So when we're small, we go, oh, I can handle this. I can handle this. But you make little mistakes along the way, and it catches up with you eventually. You want to start presenting a better image. Let me ask you guys a question, and I did do this intentionally. What's wrong with that slide? Anybody? Communications is spelled wrong.
Oh, yeah.
How many of you actually noticed that? Right? How many times have you been in a presentation and you've seen one little thing like that? These are the little mistakes that we make. Are they devastating? Probably not, but we can do better. But then what starts happening when you get yourself into a crisis situation? Suddenly those little mistakes can catch up. I'm amazed more people didn't catch that. Usually I see people going,
Can't see through his head.
oh, well, there you go. There's the front row. What they say about people who sit in the back rows. A lot of people think that big companies really know how to do communications well. In fact, they like to give each other a lot of awards for communications. Let me introduce you to PR Week's Communicator of the Year, which was March 16th, 2017. This is United Airlines CEO Oscar Mayer. Communicator of the Year, Business Communicator of the Year in the United States. Whoops. We're going to talk about Twitter later. My favorite Twitter response is someone tweeted, well, someone put the airplane thing, which was really funny. But all this person said was, this didn't age well.
Yeah.
So, even big companies sometimes think, I got this. Does anyone think that after the United Airlines incident happened, that Oscar Munoz, he is a good communicator, he is a good CEO, their stock has gone up during this whole thing. I mean, one would argue he's a pretty good CEO. If you go out, don't leave right now, but if CNN's on out there, he's getting blasted by Congress right now. But he's a communicator of the year, so I'm sure he'll be fine. Do you think that when that happened, someone went in and said, Mr. Munoz, we've had some kind of ad go down, it's hit YouTube, it's blowing up, let's go to our plan and come up with our response from this? Almost certainly not. The response was fat. He's a communicator of the year. I'm sorry, some people had to be, what was the word he used? Inconvenienced and rebooked or
transferred.
Yeah. Which is why he's in front of Congress today. If there had been a crisis communications plan, sometimes that crisis communication plan is, let's take a deep breath here. Maybe we don't have to respond to this immediately. If nothing else, put out something saying, we're reviewing the incident, we're very concerned, more to come. Something. But I'm really sorry some people got grabbed off the phone. It came off as callous, as uncaring, and to boot, it was done in an industry where customer service is not exactly known as the top priority. So there are lots of different types of communications. We're going to talk about that, but simply put, strategic communications is all about having a plan. It's having a plan for internal, It's having a plan for external. It's having a plan for when things are going well. Here's the message. And when things go bad, we got to leave that be for a minute. We've got to respond to it. We've got to get back to here. And that's really all it is. And it sounds simple, but very, very few companies do it, especially small companies. All right, plan. How do you get started with your plan? The first thing you need to do is, this was a controversial thing in a presidential election a few years ago, but you always have to think about your company as a person. Who is that person? What is he or she like? Is it a boy or a girl? What's your company's personality? If it was a person, what would it be wearing? How would it do its hair? How I like to start with that is I'm sure you've all seen the golden circle thing, right? It's real hot. Start with why, all that, everybody? Quick refresher? Oh man, this is a best TED Talk ever. You've got these 3 circles. Right? Everyone communicates this way generally. You start with, what do you do? People say, hey, what do you do in your business? Oh, well, I'm an attorney. I'm an IT person. I'm a chiropractor. Whatever. And then eventually you start getting to how you do things. And only once you really get to know someone do you get to why you're in business. And yet, as Simon Sinek's presentation shows, our brains are wired differently. They want to, first and foremost, when we're making a purchase decision, we want to know why, right? So, that, like I say, I've been doing why before why was cool. Why are you in business? Why are you in business, Jeff?
I'm here to help grow businesses here in the Cedar Park area, help them start and grow, stay here and succeed, and hire people locally.
I didn't plant that. That was actually really good. Now, you hear what he just said. Those thought processes in our brain, because where, as Simon points out, it's where you make those purchase decisions. It's not on the part of your brain that controls speech. So sometimes you say, I just have a good or bad feeling about this. Didn't you have kind of a good feeling about that? If that was your sales presentation, you wouldn't start off with, T-Werx is a co-working space where we have 30-something businesses, whatever. You start with, this is why I'm in business. Why am I in business? I'm in business to build better, happier companies that improve the quality of life in areas they serve. That's what I do. People say, that's why I do. So generally when people say, what do you do in your business? It's so, again, because the what part of our brain is associated more with speech, we always want to start with what we do. Well, I'm a communications consultant, okay? But we have to get back. So when you're doing your communications planning, we have to try to force ourselves to do that a little more. We have to, but here's the thing though. You actually have to discover why that is, Because I'm betting if I went around the room and just started pointing, why are you in business? Why did you choose to? You go, okay, I don't know, I'm thinking about that right now. It's okay. And that's why we plan. Because I don't want you to be shooting from the hip, especially in a small business, especially when you have competition out there. We're going to get ahead of that competition by taking a moment before those questions are asked of you and figuring out what some of those answers are. And that's the beginning of the planning concept, is I want all of you to go back and say, why am I in business? Why did I choose this profession? What gets me out of bed in the morning? Forget what I do for a minute, this is why I'm doing it. And that's the beginning of your communications plan, is learning how to share that story. And then there's sticking to it. Once you come up with a plan, yes, you should change it. I remember when I started this business, and I think my business plan survived like the first 3 weeks. It's like any good battle plan is great until the first cannons fire, and then everything goes crazy. But you need to stick to it. Every time that you're getting ready to do a tweet, something on Facebook, a brochure, a mailer, an email blast, whatever, you should think, is this am I presenting my company as I want it to be seen? Is this is this me, essentially, or is it that company's personality? Because after a while, just like people, you learn which companies, it's kind of a personality fit for me, right? I mean, how many restaurants do you go to that the food's okay, but I just kind of like the vibe? Yeah, it matches you. If that business was a person, you probably want to hang out with that person. And that's kind of where we want to get our businesses. I mean, there are some businesses out there that you don't always have to be hip or edgy or super fun, but you should be likable. You should be a likable business, and it helps you tell your story. And after a while, it becomes very, very natural. One of the little secret tips that I have is come up with your little vision statement, put it on the back of your business card. Yes, it's for other people to see too, but you read it so many times, you eventually memorize it. So, come up with a plan and stick to it. Profits and perceptions. So this is, if I got to be what I do, people say, well, you told me why you're in business. What do you do? I do profit work and perception work. And what I find is that they're inextricably linked. Most of us do one of these as small businesses. Some of us have found from the very beginning, we've caught a tiger by the tail, and the profits are really, really good. But as a small business, you haven't taken a lot of time to think about how am I being perceived right now. On the flip side, there are a lot of companies that are super likable and awesome and perceived very, very well, but they're not making any money. No, it's okay. In almost every engagement that I've ever done, I've been brought in initially to work on one of these. I really need to get my profits up. Okay. We're doing okay, but no one knows who we are, or I feel like we're stagnant. We're not standing out. Okay. But I find very, very quickly, once you start working on one, the other one is generally tied to it. Because when your perceptions are better, generally your profits will follow. And when your profits are better, you have more independence to work on your perceptions. Now I put on here, profit is linked to fun. This is my little Wall Street moment, the whole speech. Profit is good, It is. So for 3 semesters over at Concordia University, I taught a class called Spirituality in the Workplace. And it was talking about how to introduce concepts of spirituality. And yes, we started with religion and then we moved into greater spiritual concepts. But over and over, I pounded into my class, which was mostly seniors. So they're getting ready to graduate and go out into the big bad business world, right? And so the only thing worse than an MBA is a baccalaureate business, because we're ready. When I got my MBA, I'd go into every meeting. They're like, "Oh, someone just got their MBA," because you think for about 6 months, I am so smart. But so we kept talking about this, but we were talking about how to do good in your community, how to make sure your employers are happier and feeling fulfilled. Because when your employees are fulfilled and happy, guess what? They work harder for you and they make you more money. And so I'd always say, so what is the point of business? We're talking about doing all these good things, and they'd say, oh, well, no, it's to do some good in the world, and no, it's to make our employees feel more. And I'd go, no, this is not a religion class; it's a business class. But it wasn't just that. But they really are. I say profit is linked to fun, because what happens when your company's making money? Well, first of all, you're happier, right? Bills are coming. It kind of makes you a better leader, because you don't have to be constantly worrying about, how am I going to make this payment next month? Oh my gosh, I got to revise my business plan for the 5th time in 6 months. It causes some of the second guessing to stop. It's kind of like the Maslow hierarchy, if any of you took psych classes. Once you are taking, the bottom rungs it's all about yourself, because we're human beings, we're selfish animals, inherently, physiologically, biologically. But once we're taken care of and that foundation's in place, then we start thinking about others, and that's when we start having thoughts about spirituality and community volunteerism. People say, well, Cedar Park's a great community here. how have you done it? I said, the number one thing to me is that this is a very safe community. It's like the second or third safest in Texas. People feel safe, and when people feel safe, they go out and start helping others because they're not worried about themselves. It's the same thing in all of your businesses. You can start hiring more people. Guess what? Now we start getting into some of these concepts. When you've hired someone, you improve their life. You give them a job. They improve your life because they're helping you grow your business. And you can start thinking about philanthropy. Your business is doing okay when you're really starting to think about, how do I start giving back? Because again, you have fulfilled those bottom rungs of the hierarchy. So profit is linked to fun. I've got clients that, I say, why don't you do more employee events? Maybe a little barbecue or here and there. And often it's because, well, we really can't afford to do that right now. Well, let's get you where you can, and then we'll do that. But you also may not want to wait necessarily. So they are very much linked. All right, so let's talk about external communications first, because that's usually what we think of when we think about business communications. How are we presenting our business? So when things are good, so this is where I'm going to start doing audience participation, so just be ready. The first thing is you want to have a plan for when things are good. This is just your general communications plan. How would you like to how would you like to present your business? What's the personality of your business?
The problem is that. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
yeah.
No, I mean, so my business is in a relentless pace to keep people working with dignity and, with their hands and skill and autonomous.
I don't even care what you do, I'm interested.
Okay.
Right? I don't even care what you do, I'm interested. Because now, that's good. Now how do you stick with that? Are you sharing that message consistently? And coming up with an on-paper plan, or on iPad, we're also electronic nowadays, that before you go into a presentation, that you sit down and review, here are my talking points, and you kind of keep doing the same thing over and over. Eventually you start developing muscle memory. I'm a horrible golfer, ask Eric. But if I play a little more consistently for a while, it straightens out a little bit because I don't have to think every time I'm lining up, okay, keep this arm, keep the shoulder, what are my legs doing? You develop that muscle memory. Well, it's the same thing. When we're out presenting our businesses, if we're using that same messaging over and over and over, it becomes second nature. And people say, hey, what do you do? You're not going to answer what, you're going to start with what. But it's a plan and it's a discipline. It's a discipline. But that's your basic plan, and that plan can include how are we going to grow? Because your business plan will be tied to your communication. If you're in growth mode, I need more customers, then you're going to come up with a plan for that. You're already probably putting down, I want to contact 3 people this week, and you have a list maybe of prospective clients and that sort of thing. How many of you are then taking the additional steps saying, and here's my message? Not many of us do it. So that's that's, I say it's your plan for when things are good. It's also your plan for when things are normal, when you're in normal operations. Occasionally you're not in normal operations and something has gone wrong. You've lost a client and they've gone out and said some bad things about you. Your market has totally shifted. You've had an employee make a horrible remark at something. Who knows? But things can go wrong. One of your flight attendants dragged someone off of a plane that went in the face. Who knows? But you're never going to know what that is. But you want to also have a plan for something has gone wrong. And that plan is usually going to begin with, take a deep breath. We're not shooting from the hip here. We need to just stop and think for a moment. I have some people, I have 2 contracts where I'm on only for crisis communications. I will go 3 months without hearing them. But when I get the call, it's the oh my God call. Oh my God, what do we do here? In a city, so having been an elected official in the city for 12 years, I have learned how quickly things can shift. It can happen with a media story. It can now really happen with one angry person on Facebook. You never know where it's going to come from. Often it's misinformation. And so part of your plan, your crisis communications plan, besides take a deep breath, another step of your crisis communication plan is, do I need to correct information? Here's the problem. How often do you think you're wrong?
Never.
No one thinks they're wrong. No one thinks they're wrong. I remember years ago when we were building Cedar Park Center, there was a political campaign going on. It wasn't even mine. I mean, how annoying. I expect it when it's mine. And but there was a guy going around saying that the way that that we had done the bidding on it, we weren't doing competitive bidding on it. We were handing it out to our buddies, that sort of thing. And so I did. I said, how do I, and this was a good lesson for me. I said, how do I respond to this? And I decided, well, no one ever thinks they're wrong. So I went to the city and I requested, I need a printout of every competitive bid that we did on that building. It was like this thick. Because everything was competitive bid in there. And I knew he was going to be at this meeting, and I went in and said, hey, I saw that you've been saying this. Here you go. And he said, what's that? I said, that's all the competitive bids. Just to show you, rather than tell you that you're wrong, I wanted to show you. And I thought that'd go really well. That didn't go really well. He looked at it, he said, no, that didn't happen. I said, no, I've got this right here. He says, no, that never happened. I said, do you think I forged like 400 pages of, it's like a ream of paper. We killed a few trees with that. But it was a good lesson for me. And it was many years ago. I was young and dumb. Now I'm older and slightly less dumb. But even with here's the truth. No. And so what I realized is sometimes in your crisis communications plan, sometimes you're not going to be able to address the offended person because they've chosen to be offended and they're going to stay offended. We're a very offended society anymore. What you need to do is limit your damage. Remember, in a crisis communications plan, you're not always going to eliminate your damage. You're going to limit it. You're going to bandage it so it stops bleeding. You may have a scar afterward, but you're not going to lose the limb. And what we then pivoted to was this guy was going to be angry. What we did is we showed everyone else. Hey, here's a PDF if anyone's interested. And from then on, every time he said they didn't bid it, they said, no, there's a PDF. And that was it. So again, you're not always going to be able to please everybody, but you want to limit your damage. I say, who are you wearing? It's just another reminder about, you see that on Oscar night. Oscar night is the time for stars to improve their brand. And often they improve their brand by wearing another brand, right? Who are you wearing tonight? I just saw that in March. It's the same thing. You need to think about what your company looks like to other people and how you're presenting yourself. Are you a ball gown or are you jeans and a t-shirt? And there's no wrong answer, but it's what you are, and your communications during good times and bad times should reflect that. Far less often, especially in small businesses, we don't think about internal communications. Communications and culture run hand in hand. And I actually have one client right now that I'm working with them almost entirely on what their company culture is. And so we're presenting ourselves well to our customers, things are doing well. Are we doing the same thing with our employees? Whether we have one employee or 25 or 100, what are we saying to them? How are they, because what we say to them, it's, again, we're kind of getting to like parental mode sometimes. I'm the father of a 7-year-old, and she repeats everything I say. I learned to watch my mouth a little more. But our employees will often do the same thing. If we are consistently, not annoyingly, but consistently conveying to them, we're in growth mode here, guys. Things are going well. We're helping people. We're doing good work. We're cutting edge. You say it enough times, it kind of starts becoming the truth, doesn't it? That's when they are then talking to your employees, to your other employees, and they're having the scuttlebutt that you can't hear. Wow, you happy here? If you have 2 employees and you're not in the room and one of them says, are you happy here? Think about what you think they're saying. And if any one of you goes, it's time for an internal communications plan. And by the way, it's not just the words you use. That's certainly important. Like I say, you can't just come up with a plan and say, okay, now we're going to project happy. So go be. Maybe you're not a happy person. It kind of has to come from the top down. I've got, one of my favorite clients, the president of the company. It's a small business. They have about 25, 28 FTEs. He's a very soft-spoken guy. And he doesn't like to raise his voice very much. And so asking him to go in and say, guys, how are you doing this morning? Woo! He's not Tony Robbins. He's not. So what I did is I sat down with him and I said, what's your style? What are you comfortable with? And he says, well, I don't love speaking in front of a group. I love my employees, though. I said, well, let's go with that. Let's go with that. And I went to the employees and I said, is he a good communicator? Yeah, we just don't hear from him very much. But what everyone talked about is that at Thanksgiving, every year they do a Thanksgiving dinner for all the employees. And they said he gets up and he tells us how much he appreciates us and how thankful he is for us. And then he leads us in a short prayer. And I love that. And I went to him, I said, they love it. Really? I'm like, they love it. How about more than once a year? Maybe you figure out what you're comfortable with. And maybe quarterly we find a way to do a little bit. Oh, I could do that.